are listening to Lex Talk, More Action. I'm your host, Cameron Mentor, and today my co-host, my ace boon coon, my number one, Mr. James Cole, and he is the executive project analyst for Community Action Council in our office of the executive director. What's going on, bro?
Everything's good, big time. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are in the house, and I got a question for you.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but before COVID, I was an avid sports fan. I watched it. I kept up with it. I tagged my team Louisville, and I don't want to hear no mess. But I follow my cards, and I was religious about it. But ever since COVID, my interest has really died off. What about you, brother?
I think you're hitting it right on the head. I think it's widespread. Everybody has sports support has diminished significantly since COVID.
And I felt some kind of way because, we were robbed of the March Madness and all of that. So I was ready for the sport, blah, 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 blah. And now it's here. And I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, they played yesterday. Oh, I missed it.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm glad we're having it because anything beats wrestling all day. but the support we used to give is just not at that same level.
And I don't understand. Now, I do tell you this. It is rough to watch a game when COVID is making its issues. Now, it's one thing for you to beat my team fully, but if people are sick and they can't practice and all that's weighing in, man. Don't nobody want to watch that.
I know.
That's like I hate to say it, but it's like watching the Scrubs, man. Don't nobody want to watch the Scrubs.
And teams have been managing that factor. In fact, I can't remember the last time the University of Louisville's men's basketball team has played. Can you?
They just came back last week and got smashed.
Right. And that's the effect COVID has. You're out of the gym. You don't get the regular regimen. You go onto the floor. You're not really prepared. Practicing and playing against yourself is nothing like being in a game.
No. And see, I'm a college guy.
Right.
So I ain't really even feeling the pros, and it's playoff time. This is the time I should really be watching.
Exactly. You know me. This is the time of the season for me. I got to watch my Nets, which I'm a Brooklyn Nets guy now that we have James Harden along with Durant and Kyrie. So I've been tuning in religiously on the NBA level.
Really,
yes,
really,
sir. Yes, sir. It's been fun to watch.
But they pulling people in the third quarter for COVID.
Yeah.
That don't. James, does that make sense?
It really doesn't.
I played a whole 3 quarters with you, and I done put sweat and all kind of saliva and everything on. And now in the third quarter, I gotta leave because.
Yeah, that's the unknown factor. You're right. It really doesn't make sense. I've seen them pull Durant after halftime for that same reason. He had to quarantine.
It's crazy.
And then they put him back in, and then he had to quarantine again. So it's topsy-turvy.
But that means everybody else on the court needs.
Right. You would think.
Well,
yep.
We got sports back, so I can't complain. But it's just not the same. It's not hitting the same.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see how March Madness fares out with the SEC tournament. Teams not wanting to risk exposure during the tournament, and then advancing on to the NCAA tournament. What's that going to look like? How that's going to fare out if you didn't participate in the SEC tournament?
Look what's happening. Everybody's invited.
Right.
Everybody's going to get a chance.
That's what it looks like.
Mookie and them who play on the weekends going to be in the tournament.
Yeah. And the smaller schools are going to really like that because that kind of leverages the playing table for them.
So again, will it be a product that we really want to watch?
No, but it's one we're willing to accept under these conditions.
I like your optimism. I like that. Well, James, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
We've got a wonderful guest today. Who do we have?
Yes,
on the
we
show
do.
Today?
Let me hurry up and get her on. Her name is Miss Dominique Wright. Miss Dominique Wright is a believer, wife, daughter, sister, and servant. Uh-oh. She's a graduate of the University of Kentucky and Georgia Tech with a BS degree in mechanical engineering and a master's also in mechanical engineering, respectively. So welcome, Dominique. How are you this afternoon?
I'm great and happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and get to it, Cam, if you don't mind.
That is quite the accolade.
It is. It's pretty awesome.
But what I love is believer.
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Definitely
important to you.
Right.
Most important.
There it is. She said it's most important. All right.
So let's get to it. Dominique, in your bio, you talk about your faith and you talk about your family. Tell me why that is so important to you.
I'm sure. I was raised in a Christian household by two parents who are strong believers, and they really set the foundation of what family is and what's important. They both came from humble beginnings, and so they taught me just how what matters in life is really what you do for other people and how you make other people feel, and making sure that you're a reflection of God here on this side of heaven. And that's important because I think it puts everything in perspective. So as we all know, going through last year and now into 2021, COVID has shifted a lot of things for us that we probably looked at as priority. And it's put a lot of things in life in perspective. And I think having that grounding helped transition as easily as possible through COVID, which was not easy for any of us, I'm sure. But they just laid that foundation at an early age.
And I think that's so important too, because as a believer,
mm-hmm.
I don't know where my strength would come from if
mm-hmm.
I didn't have that faith.
Exactly.
A lot of folks are struggling and don't have that connection. So when what they lean on is gone, then there's nothing left.
Exactly.
So it's really great to see that is a foundation for you that you're building off of.
Yes.
And it is something to be emulated.
Yes, you're exactly right. I can't imagine. I mean, even with faith,
right?
It can
it's
be very
tough.
tough.
Very.
It's still tough.
Can you imagine what that must feel like without faith?
Yeah,
the despair, the hopelessness that you're contending with this environment in. So I can respect and appreciate your perspective and the fact that you bring all of that into who you are today. How much influence, if I could ask, has your family had in your career choice as a mechanical engineer? You want to share that with us?
Sure. Both my parents, they're probably going to get on me for saying this, but they're both nerds. So we're a family of nerds. My mom is by background a nurse. She was a licensed practical nurse for several years, working at Central Baptist. My dad is a civil engineer by background, but he transitioned into the business side with the water company early in his career. So both of them really pushed science and math, but I think they knew at a young age that I was one of those kids who learned differently. I remember my dad told me I took apart a VCR when I was a kid, and I put it back together. That was a rule. If you take something apart, you got to put it together. I always asked him how stuff worked.
Mm-hmm.
I look at bicycles and some of my toys, and I try to take them apart and put them back together, or why my Barbie's arm didn't move a certain way. And so he noticed that early and was like, he fostered that through science, through math. They didn't stop us from doing anything we didn't want to do. And then he really just allowed us to hone in on that. I didn't see any females in the engineering field growing up, so I didn't know that women could be engineers until probably late high school. But I had a parent who was an engineer, and then I had a mother who was good at science. And so I was like, well, those are pretty good combinations. I think I'll try this path. My dad told me not to do civil because he did civil. So he was like, do something completely different. But I'm a hands-on person. I'm a visual person. And so I decided the mechanical route was the best over some other things because I'm not the programmer, electrical person. I feel like electrical, you can only see once you get shocked, and I didn't like that. So I chose the mechanical route because I like to build. And I realized it was a good foundation for any career choice.
And I think, too, that being a parent and honing in on what makes your child move, what
their interest,
passion they have is critical. There's so many people that are just missing that. You know what I'm saying? Like my grandbaby, she deals with the arts, anything with singing, drawing, all of that. So what are we doing? We're promoting that. We're pushing. Yes. Hey, that's something that, and it's not something that necessarily is my passion, but it's hers, and we're advancing that, and that's key into developing something that you probably really enjoy doing.
Yes, definitely.
How many people have a job that they just go to because it makes money?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people, and I tell kids all the time, I'm a big kid. Engineers are giant kids. I like problem solving. I like breaking stuff and fixing it. And so I get to be a kid every day, and I think that's I'm fortunate that my parents, they recognized at an early age and pushed me to explore that. They didn't force me into it, but they did say, if this is something you want to do, these are some steps we think you should take.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. I've got a small, quick, short story to share. My son, my oldest son, he's artsy, kind of like what you were just describing, Cameron, and he was into dance, and he, like you, Dominique, he liked taking things apart and putting them back together. And so he had decided he wanted to do dance, and I was fully on board with that. But what did kind of give a ripple effect to me is that he was interested in what they call the McTaggart School of Dancing, which is Irish dancing.
Wow.
So you're laughing, but I was in knots when he told me that. I'm an old sports guy.
You was like, yes, Mom. What?
So I had to take him. His mother asked me, will you take him to practice? So I took him to practice, and it took a lot for me. That was a major deal for me because, number one, he was the only male. Number two, he was the only African-American male. Number three, I'm the only African-American male dad in a McTaggart School of Dance and rehearsal. So I'm sitting in the chair, and it must have shown the disdain must have just shown all over my face, because one mother came over and she says, I can see you're having some challenges with this.
I think that is the best thing, is to be able to tap into that,
right.
and help develop your child. We are these early years is when development. We already know that with Head Start, right?
Right.
We know how important developing that child from an early age, and what we pour in our children is what the effect is when they get older.
So true, so true. So you're a mechanical engineer with degrees from both the University of Kentucky and Georgia Tech.
Yes.
And from what I've read, Georgia Tech reportedly has one of the top 10 mechanical engineering programs in the country.
Yes.
Share with us what that experience, both those experiences was for college life for you on those campuses, if you would.
Sure. It was funny because I was one of those kids that was like, I'm leaving Lexington. I'm getting away as far as I can from my parents.
Heard that.
And I was young. I was 17 when I went to college. So my dad said, you're going where it's free. I didn't appreciate that at that age, but I do now on the other side of it. But I went to UK. I had some of the best time of my life. I met some great people who are still my friends to this day. It was a very interesting dynamic because I was from Lexington. I understood Lexington, but UK was very monochromatic as far as the demographic. So I was usually one of maybe 4 or 5 women in all of my engineering classes, and that 4 or 5 saying a lot. Most of my classes are probably 1 or 2. And usually I was, if not the only African-American, there may be one other. I think I started with 4 or 5 of us total out of our whole class, and we ended with me and one other that graduated together. So that was challenging a little bit, but I appreciated it because it prepared me for how to face obstacles like that, and when you're not the majority, or when you're not in your comfort zone. But I had a blast. I played club basketball there, so that was my outlet. That was my time away from the books, because with engineering you're studying constantly. But I appreciated it. It gave me a lot of practical learning. I then left and went to Georgia Tech, which was almost the polar opposite of University of Kentucky, mainly because it was full of minorities, and minorities on a global scale. So it gave me a sense of belonging, but also was probably the first time I fully felt okay in my identity and being a minority, being African American, and being intelligent. That was the first time in my life where I realized all those things can coincide at one time, and it's okay. And it's fully accepted and expected. And so I'm very, very grateful for Georgia Tech and my friends and the faculty there for that experience.
Awesome.
That's great.
As a follow-up question, I understand that you're a Delta.
Yes.
Shout out to the Deltas. Our executive director is also a Delta.
Yeah.
Tell me, how has that been a part of that membership? How has that impacted your involvement from a community perspective?
You know what? We're going to get that right after this break.
Community Action Council Prep Academies offer free early childhood education and comprehensive services to children birth to 5 years old and their families. This school year, parents and families can choose the Head Start learning option that best fits the need of their child and family, whether it's virtual or with their Head Start program or in-person learning. The choice is yours. To enroll your child in one of their prep academies or in Head Start at home, call the Community Action Council today at 859-233-4600 or by going online at COMMACTION.org. That's ComAction.org.
Hi everybody, I've got some amazing news for you guys today. Community Action Council is about to launch Unapologetically Woman. We are celebrating women all across Kentucky who are doing phenomenal work in their communities, like Attica Scott. She is the 41st District Representative in Kentucky, and she's only one of 2 Black female legislators. And women like Sarada Benedict Begley, a fashion designer who took her dreams from the sweatshops of Honduras to runways all across America. Now here's what you need to do. Click the link below and nominate your favorite woman that's making a difference in the community. We know that there are women living unapologetically all across Kentucky, and I can't wait to get the nominations to see all of the phenomenal work that we're doing. Unapologetically Woman, that's you.
You're listening to Let's Talk More Action, and today our special guest is Dominique Wright. Now, Dominique, right before the break, we were talking about your sorority.
Yes.
Who might that be?
I am a member of the illustrious sorority of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
You see how I set it up? I set it up for that.
You teed it up perfectly.
I knew. Yes. So I think, James, what was the question?
The question was, how does your membership in that organization, in addition to the culture that of your family and community, how has that helped shape your worldview?
Well, I'll say from a Delta standpoint, our organization was founded on service and it was founded on Christian principles. So it kind of went hand in hand with who I already was. But I remember when I first heard about Deltas in high school from Miss Tava Clay, who I'm so honored now to call my soror. She explained the involvement in the Women's March and how, as Black women at that time, that was something almost unheard of for them to be marching up front and to be speaking for women across the country. And so that kind of laid the foundation of what our organization stands on. And so I think being around like-minded women who are college educated, who are about their church, about their family, just gives you a different sense of energy. Every time I'm around them, I want to do better because they inspire me to do better. And so I think that shaped who I am because I realize it's bigger than me. And I realize that I not only not want to let myself down, but I don't want to let my soror down. And so coupling that with parents and a sibling and now a husband who is a firm believer in Christ, you have no choice but to do what you're supposed to do and do the right thing, even when it's not popular. And I think that's just how I try to live now.
That's awesome.
I think at this time in history, women are taking a platform that has been elusive for them for quite a while. Twice you've already mentioned about how important that is to be who you are completely. Education, woman, just everything that's about you, and to be proud about it.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying. So right now, it just seems like the world is noticing, is taking notice. Is that something that you're realizing right now? And in that space, that same space, the responsibility for you to let some other young girl who might be watching you know that she can be whatever.
Definitely. I think I'm a firm believer in the village. I think nobody can make it without having a village. I think the beautiful thing in particular about Black women is that we've always had that sisterhood innately through all the trauma of our people in this country. We had no choice. We were the backbone of the family, backbone of the church, backbone of the community. And so we innately know how to lean on one another and help. I think now it's interesting that the rest of the world's catching up with things that we already knew. But I do think it's beautiful that now little girls can look on TV or read a book or Google and see someone who looks like them, regardless of skin shade, whether they're light, whether they're dark, whether they have a disability, whether they're tall or short, whether they're an athlete or a dancer, or whether they wear their hair straight or curly. It took me a while to get to the time where I felt comfortable wearing natural hair, and especially in a corporate environment. And so now to see little girls rocking, the Bantu knots and the braids and these updos that are just so extravagant and beautiful warms my heart, because it really shows that ingenuity and the creativity that I think we've always possessed. But now that the world is finally realizing, if we unleash this, there's no telling what change can happen, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. And
in the field that you chose to do a career, again, not very many, but it is still showing that it can be done.
Right.
I think with Kamala Harris, I mean, it's just opening doors, and not necessarily physical doors, but mental doors. That you can do this. This is not above or beyond you. Being an engineer, I'm sure there were some challenges.
Oh yeah, there's many times I didn't think I was going to make it. I remember going to grad school, and I think the first test I got, I failed miserably, and I had never failed that bad. I didn't know they had grades this bad. And I remember calling my parents, and I said, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. And my dad really kind of scolded me. He said, "How dare you? You know who you are. I raised you, your mother raised you, and you know whose you are. You know who you belong to.
Right.
And God didn't put you somewhere that he wasn't going to bring you through. It may not look the way you thought. It may not be as easy as you thought.
Right.
But he's going to prepare you. He's going to put people around you." And literally within 2 days, I had a conference with my teacher, and my teacher was like, "Oh, that's just a weeding out test. No big deal. You'll be fine." And at the end of the class, I ended up getting an A, which was astonishing because I literally failed so bad that first test. But it was just a testament of perseverance and remembering really that God has you at all times. And so I think it anchored me a little better. I think he had to shake me up a little bit.
I think trials.
Yes.
Going through trials is what really allows you to test your faith.
Definitely.
I mean, if everything's easy, you just riding.
Right. I know this. Lexington is so fortunate to have you back here, because I'm a firm believer that we spend a lot of time. And when I say we, I'm speaking of the community and the village that you mentioned earlier. We spend a lot of time investing in our young people. And like you and me and many others, as soon as we get our degrees, we're ready to get back out of town. And the sad or tragic part about that is the community that invested so much in that person loses the dividend or the return on that investment when they go away. And that was one of the things that was kind of my preaching stump when we were doing the football classic that we talked about earlier offline, is that we gave out scholarships. And I always said, go wherever you want to go and do you. But please come back, because this community needs your skills, your talents, your gifts. And Ray and them need to see that you done well, that they know that they can eventually do well when they get where you're at.
So was it a hard decision for you to come back?
I came out of grad school right at the peak of the recession. But luckily I'd already secured a job. And at first it was hard, and I prayed about it, and God made it real clear. I mean, slapped me across the face with it and was like, I need you to go back home to build stuff for me.
Yes.
This is bigger than you. It has nothing to do with you. I'm going to take care of you.
Yes.
And I told my parents that, and it was funny because both of them affirmed what I heard. They were like, yeah, we're pretty sure that's why you're back.
Right.
This may not be where you stay, but it is where you're called to be right now. And so that gave me a security in the fact that while I wanted to be away, I knew that coming back was right and that God was going to make room however he saw fit.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
So where did you meet your husband?
I actually met him through the National Society of Black Engineers. He's an engineer as well. But I met him at a conference in Puerto Rico. We had common friends, mutual friends. We didn't know each other. We met there at a conference, and then we had a friendship, and it blossomed, and now we're married.
Awesome.
So your husband's the engineer as well?
Yes. He's an industrial engineer.
Wow.
Just out of curiosity, is he a member of any fraternity organization?
Yes, he's he's a member of Kappa Alpha Psi.
What is happening here?
Somehow I figured that. That was a shameless plug, by the way. Speaking of service and the village, going back to that, I think I read somewhere, and I agree with this philosophy, is that service is the rent you pay while you're here on earth. I think I read that about you. And I would like to ask you, will you expound on that? What does that mean to you?
For me, it means that you're blessed to be a blessing to others. There's work to be done on this side of heaven that, for me, what I believe at my core is that as a follower of Jesus Christ, I'm supposed to do that while I'm here. I don't need to waste time. I don't need to waste talents that were bestowed upon me. It also means that you can't forget where you've come from and how you got there. As you mentioned earlier, if everything was easy, then we just lean on our own, and we don't really understand that we didn't get here by ourselves. We got here because God placed us here. He put the resources in place to get us here. So I think that is something I owe to him for breathing breath in my body, is to make sure that I'm living the best resemblance of him in human form while I can here. I'm far from perfect, but I think my job here is to serve others first, think of others first, and to make sure that people know who he is. And I think that's hard for people to know who you are if you're not walking out and you're not showing what service looks like. Because as we all know, Jesus was the perfect example of a servant leader. And so I just try to use him as my example. I'm, again, far from it, but just using that as my reach goal helps me just to do better every day.
And with that, I mean, just researching, there's organization after organization after organization that you are a part of. You had just mentioned the National Society of Black Engineers.
Yes.
Tell us what made you go in that form.
I'll say probably mostly because when I got to UK, I didn't see other people who looked like me, and that was my safe place. And our group was very, very small there. But I had two professors. One was an advisor, one was a professor, Dr. Janae Parker and Dr. Tanya Phillips. Both are African-American women in engineering. And they pulled me aside. They were telling me about what NSBE is and what it can do for me and how it's that place of comfort. And so I really found a family there. We, traveled everywhere. We did conferences. We studied together. But it became a place of that's who I knew who had my back. Even if I was tired or I didn't feel like studying or I didn't know where to go, I knew if I called somebody in that organization, they were going to go outside of their way to make sure I had what I needed. And so those have been some of the best friends I've had. And then I continued it going to Georgia Tech. I continued it when I came back here as a professional. And then we started a junior chapter. So now we have kids who are coming up in that, knowing that they're not the only one. And for those who haven't been around NSBE, when you go to a conference and you see thousands of Black and brown faces who are in engineering,
absolutely,
it puts something in you that you just can't explain. And so you come back ready. You come back ready to tackle the world. And so that's like a second family.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, just being able to have a connection, because everybody's going for the same goal. We're going to better ourselves, to get a higher education, but we can be lost in that without a connection.
Right.
And so being able to connect with people with the same mindset and same a familiar background is totally helpful.
Yes.
Especially when you're away from home and away from mom and dad, and that protection is gone, and it's it reminded. Well, I'm not gonna say that, but I was thinking about when you're in a bad situation, you look for something that you can connect to.
Yeah,
and it doesn't always mean you find the right thing.
Right. Very true.
I went from a 3.4 in college to a 1.4 in one semester because I connected with some people I knew from Louisville.
Right.
But it wasn't a necessarily right group that I needed to connect with.
Right. That was similar to me. I initially attended the University of Louisville in undergrad and had a great time. That was a while back. They won the championship that year. It was the Doctors of Dunk, so you can imagine what that first year being away from home for the first time. Yeah. And then that summer, I had one of those, what do you call, surreal experiences that made me need something more than what I was getting there. So I decided to attend an HBCU, which was Kentucky State University. And you're exactly right. It's a great feeling to be challenged, particularly from your instructors. Not only do they challenge you, but then they turn around and support you.
Right.
And that just makes you want to run and run and run and run until you can't run anymore with what they're putting in front of you. And then in addition to that, the opportunities you get to demonstrate leadership and the skills that you acquire during that process, I think sometimes get missed in large institutions where there are thousands and thousands of students and everybody's, like you said, going there to get their degree and move on. I think some of those opportunities, when we talk about the glass ceiling, what we're really talking about are opportunities.
Right.
And at an HBCU, they push you into what I call opportunities to develop, lead, and get that experience. So I can relate to that significantly. With that being said, are we ready to go into our next conversation with your Okay, well then let's talk about the Urban League.
Sure.
I'll be honest with you. I have an affinity for them because as I spoke with you earlier, the Urban League, under the leadership of PG Peoples, they were partners with our entity, which was the Kentucky Heritage Football Classic, and we were able to bring HBCU football to Lexington at your old high school, Dunbar, and we were able to bring in entertainers and therefore with entertainers and people on that level. But what I really want to know from you is this: what is your role in the Urban League, and share with us what you're doing in that role with the Urban League.
Sure. So we have an affiliate group of the Lexington Urban League called the Lexington Urban League Professionals. I'm currently the president of that organization. We're about 40, 45-ish members currently. But we're here as the professional development arm of our affiliate, but we're also here to support that movement locally and nationally. For those who aren't familiar, the Urban League is all about securing economic self-reliance and social parity and civil rights for all people, but in particular, we focus on those African Americans and other underserved communities. But here, my role is really just to support anything that PG does and help our members become that next generation of civil rights leaders.
Yeah, the last podcast we had, PG was here, and he is a wealth of knowledge and history and just a great mentor.
Yes.
Great mentor. We're going to talk more with Dominique right after the break.
Community Action Council is here to help our neighbors recover from this pandemic and thrive. One way we are doing that is by working with Lexington Fayette Urban County Government and their Housing Stabilization Program to provide assistance to residents who are facing the threat of eviction. The federal funding LFUCG received can assist with past due or future rent and past due or future utility costs. The best way to access help is online. If you Google or put in the search bar COVID-19renterhelp.org, you will land on LFUCG's information page, where you can read about the program or click the button that says apply. There are some eligibility requirements. Households which can mean one person or more than one person, must live in Fayette County and have incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. Households must be able to describe how they have been impacted by COVID-19 and that they face eviction and homelessness because they are past due on monthly rent. This program can also help households with their utilities, which includes water and sewer, electric, and gas. The very best thing you can do is to fill out the form that is linked on LFUCG's website. Once that information gets processed and prioritized, someone will reach out to you using the contact information that you provide. Community Action Council has been and will continue to be here to help our community thrive.
Community Action Council Prep Academies offer free early childhood education and comprehensive services to children birth to 5 years old and their families. This school year, parents and families can choose the Head Start learning option that best fits the need of their child and family, whether it's virtual or with their Head Start program or in-person learning. The choice is yours. To enroll your child in one of their prep academies or in Head Start at home, call the Community Action Council today at 859-233-4600 or by going online at COMMACTION.org. That's ComAction.org.
During these very difficult times, Community Action Council is on the front lines, caring for our neighbors as we have over the past 55 years. We are safely helping individuals and families access shelter, food, energy assistance, and health care. We're also ensuring families with young children have baby formula and diapers. We're continuing to prioritize education using virtual learning to help us teach our Head Start children and engage our youth. Things look a little different right now, but we are Community Action Council, and we're made for this.
We're back. You're listening to Let's Talk More Action, and we're talking with Dominique Wright. Dominique.
Yes.
I'm looking at all these different things you're doing. How are you doing all these things? Maybe this is just old stuff. This is some old stuff. Tell us some of these things that you're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Let me ask you this: how many different organizations are you working with right now?
Currently, there's probably 4 or 5.
Jeez Louise. And work.
A mother,
yes.
A wife, a sister.
God. How you, girl?
A professional.
You're making me feel bad.
She's a typical Renaissance woman.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. You're on Amachi. Is that am I saying that right?
Yes, I serve as one of their mentors.
And what do you do with them?
So Amachi is a program through the Lexington Leadership Foundation here. It serves children in the local area who have been impacted by incarceration. So they have one-on-one mentorship. You're supposed to meet at least 1 hour a week for a whole year. So I've been blessed to have a young girl who I didn't realize was going to bring me so much joy. But she's super talented. She loves basketball. She loves just being a kid. She loves the outdoors. She wants to be a veterinarian. So we have the love of STEM. So I just enjoy spending time with her because she helps keep me young.
Now you said the love of STEM. That's another one, isn't it? What do you do with STEM?
So I'm still in and out of the National Society of Black Engineers. I try to do as much STEM awareness around the community, whether that's through some of the stuff Urban League does or through my job, since I clearly work with a whole bunch of engineers. But I always just try to push it wherever I go. I'm sure all of my little cousins and family members are upset because I'm always asking them something about STEM. But I think it's a field that touches every other field. And so I think a lot of our kids should be exposed to it.
Are you seeing a large group or an increase in minorities and especially young women?
I believe there is an increase. I think probably in the last 20 years, it's probably went up another 15% or so. I am seeing a larger enrollment of minorities. Typically, minorities tend to go to the computer science side because computer science touches everything as well. But you're seeing a lot of push for coding, and organizations like Girls Who Code or Black Girls Code, things like that are pushing that, which I love. For my field in mechanical, it's one of the older engineering fields, so you don't see as many women in general. But I think it is still growing. But of course, we still have work to do in that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Getting back to the Urban League Young Professionals. I understand you all have empowerment agenda. You want to talk with us and share with us what the empowerment agenda consists of and the roles that you have to play in that?
Sure. We all laugh. We just had a conference call with our national president and other presidents around the country, and we kind of called it the new Black Power, because it took a while for us to realize, but I think 2020 really showed us the power of our voice and the power of the collective voice. And so we're very big on empowering people to be able to stand on their own and keep that sustainability, but also building the community. We don't want to leave anyone behind. We don't want to have anyone feel that we're an elitist type of movement. We're very grassroots for the people. And so we just really believe in empowering everyone to use their voice and use their talents, however that shapes out to be. And I think that's one thing that I love about the movement is that we allow people to be themselves and to express themselves or to take a stance however they feel. But we also make them realize that being quiet or not being in your community is not an option. So however you choose to do that, whether that's a protest or whether that's sitting on a board in the community or whether that's leading a group at your job or your church or in your neighborhood, that's fine. But we truly believe in using whatever seat you have at whatever table to either extend that table for other people or to crack that table in half and build a new table that's more inclusive.
Yeah. This past year, we all experienced and viewed the terrible things that happened as it relates to Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and their tragic deaths, and some would even say murders. And then what that felt like here, even in this community in Lexington. How involved was the Urban League and the Young Professionals? I know the Urban League's involved, but how involved were the Young Professionals in any of that, the protests, the marches, for you on a personal level and or as an organization?
Definitely. So I think Urban League really focuses on advocacy. That's a big thing. Our chapter has an advocacy committee. Dr. Candace Hargons is our chair. So she really worked with her committee to make sure we were aware of any bills that were coming so that we could advocate on those behalf. Any meetings that we needed to attend, we have a program called Put On For Our City where we attend city council meetings. So the mayor knows who we are. Our each individual council member knows which YP members are in their area. So we tackled it from that side, from an advocacy standpoint. We did not say as an organization or as a chapter that we would go and protest. Sure. But we did say every member has their own freedom to do that. And we encourage people to use their voice again, however they see fit. Myself, I protested a little bit, but out of caution for being around other family members who have pre-existing conditions, I was not out in the protest as much as I probably would have had it not been for COVID. But I do know 2020, I think for me, helped me find that gut of your voice and really being unapologetic in where you stand. And for me, that was being okay with not being liked or not agreeing with some people, and being able to be confrontational in a respectful way, but standing in that. And I think that can sometimes be harder for women, just from societal norms and pressures. But I think 2020 showed me that I don't have a choice anymore, because I have family members who are depending on that, and I have future generations who are looking at me to say, "We're waiting on you to do this," so that I can clear the path to make their path a little easier.
Yeah, awesome. I think that is crucial in figuring out. I think we had a conversation. I can't remember who it was. Probably Kamisha, trying to identify who are African American leaders. It seemed a little ambiguous, not easy to find, but I think a lot has changed since I think we had that conversation. And who do you think are, and I give you the bow out because, you can't speak for everybody, but who are the people that you identify as leaders in your generations in that's coming up building for other people?
I would say locally, I would say Divine Karama is an example that comes to my mind very quickly because he's able to relate to people regardless of where they are. Mm-hmm. And he's very open-minded and he can communicate very effectively. I think he brings in a younger generation through the use of hip hop, which I think is genius, to get them to understand the problems that we're facing and how they fit in. I would also say another person locally would be Ashley Smith with Black Soil. I think bringing back something that a lot of families, I believe, were ashamed of, and understanding that their heritage was in sharecropping and where that came from, and using that and flipping it and saying, no, this is something that is powerful. This is something that should be celebrated. This is something that was the foundation of our country. This is something that can create wealth and multi-generational wealth. And it's also something that is healthier for all of us. It's better than buying, food in the store. And she's somebody who I look to when I make decisions or when I move, because I see how she's done it with little to no help. Mm-hmm. And from a national standpoint, I would say the National Urban League of Professionals president, Ray Shackelford, he's based out of Houston. But I've seen him speak for people who didn't even know that they had lost their voice. Right. And he is another one who's just unapologetic in where he stands, always respectful, always willing to help. But I've never seen someone at that level in an organization so big, because we have over 60 chapters. He will call individually to make sure people are okay. I remember when my grandmother passed, he called and asked me, what do you need? Are you okay? He sat there, prayed with me, talked to me, and checked back in, after the funeral, after all the people are gone. He kept checking back in. And so I think people like that who really show that it's not about them, it's about what they're doing in the future, knowing that they may not even be here to see what comes from the seeds that they sowed, I think are people that are extremely admirable. And I hope that more people give them their flowers now.
Absolutely.
So speaking about agriculture, I've tinkered with it some, and I'm like, this was a gift to us. And what happened is slavery perverted that gift. Yes. And because of it, many of us ran away from that very inherent gift. Mm-hmm. And part of the program part of what we taught was the program is that the way things are changing is that those who have the knowledge and understanding and the skill sets to grow will be the providers in the days to come. True. And learning how to do that from a sustainable perspective and understanding the health and the nutrition and all of the positive things that come from that. Definitely. Is so positive. So shout out to Ashley and what she's doing. Much love.
Definitely.
This year for Black History Month, and this is wrapping up our Black History Salute. I noticed a lot of different individuals were supporting Black-owned businesses and Black professionals that I hadn't necessarily seen before. So I think that's a sign of progress. But while we have everybody's attention, we really need to be saying something. So right now, what strides have young African-American professionals taken, especially here in our community, to help push that forward?
I think this generation is taking their future in their own hands. They're not waiting for someone to provide an opportunity. They're going out and seeking an opportunity. I would say probably a quarter to half of our young professional members are entrepreneurs, and most of them are of multiple businesses. And so for us, we try to highlight them as much as we can on our social media. We try to make sure that if we need a service, we go to them first as opposed to going to someone else, so we can keep that money in our family. We try to publicize them as much as possible. We have a program that we do that we kind of went away from a little bit when COVID hit, was called First Fridays, where we try to go to a Black-owned restaurant and we try to, before COVID, we just pack it out. Just everybody try to show up as much as you could during that day. Bring your mom, bring your sister, bring your brother. And so now we're trying to bring that back slowly and safely. But I would say this generation is not waiting on answers. They're just creating their own solutions. And they're telling we're millennials, most of us. And so we're telling those Gen Zs that whatever you need, we got you, and come on now. And I think we're seeing a shift in mindset that you have to have a lot of money to own a business, or that you have to completely give up your current career to own a business. I think we're seeing now that people are saying it's okay to follow your passion and, you know, get your money to pay your bills. And we're seeing the younger people. I'm seeing kids who are 6 and 7 coming up with hair products and stuff that they're selling just around the neighborhood, and then they're building business plans and they're getting platforms. And so I think it's just a different generation where we understand where we come from and we understand the power in it. But I think we're not trying to get rich. We're trying to create wealth so that we can sustain that long term.
That's great. That is awesome.
With that being said, I have a quick question for you. And it goes back to what we were talking in terms of the protests. On January the 6th, we all witnessed something that I didn't think I'd ever see in my lifetime, which is the President of the United States incite an insurrection against his own government. Let me ask you, what thoughts and feelings did you have about that, coming away from that as it relates to hope?
I wasn't shocked by what happened, which is sad, because I felt like it was almost like you're poking a bear. You're just waiting for the bear to come back and bite you. So I wasn't surprised. I was saddened by it, and of course disheartened, especially when you're seeing lives lost. As far as hope, I will say that day was very draining for me, but I had to go back to my foundation of where my hope comes from, and I realized that I can't put hope or faith in people or a person in a position or a title. That was something my parents always taught me, that titles don't mean anything if your actions don't align with it. And so my hope was really anchored in the fact that I knew whatever happened, that God was going to get the glory at the end. And I think what 2020 showed us and leading up to that was that even in a storm that looks as ugly as a pandemic, as ugly as police brutality, that God can use something in that to stir up whatever he needs for you to see. And I think while I don't agree with anything that happened, or while I'm upset that this happened in addition to a pandemic, I am glad that the world was at a standstill while it happened, so that people's attention could be on that event and on how do we move forward and how do we correct things that we've done wrong in the past. And I don't think that would have happened had we not been in a place where everyone is isolated and having to sit.
Thank you so much for coming today. It's been such a great interview, but I just wanted, what is your wrap up? What are your last words? What do you want to leave with the people today?
I would say, if I had to tell anyone who's listening, I would say, be confident in who you are, stand in that firmly, and keep God first, because you never know where he's going to take you.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
It's good stuff.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
We've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, Cam.
And you all have been listening to Lex Talk. More action. Keep listening.